Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. 3 members of the African Democratic Congress this week filed a lawsuit at the Federal High Court in Abuja contesting the interim leadership of the party, which is currently headed by former Senate President David Mark. Opposition politicians recently launched the coalition as a platform to rally votes against the President Bola Tinubu, in upcoming elections. The former national chairman of ADC, Chief Prof. Okenwosu, said the party's executives resigned to support the interim party leadership. Now, this lawsuit was filed by 3 members of the ADC, including Adeyemi Emmanuel, Ayodeji Victor Tolu, and Haruna Ismaila. They argue that Nwosu's tenure as national chairman had expired and that he lacks the authority to convene meetings or appoint interim executives. While for his well-considered thoughts on that legal development affecting the new political coalition and indeed other related matters, including the Peter Obi factor and Atiku Abubakar's speculated decision to run for president again, we're now being joined here on the morning show by lawyer, public policy analyst and convener, Country First Movement, Professor Chris Nwakobia. Good morning and welcome back to the morning show.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here. Kachi, good morning.
Good
Steve,
morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right, let's begin the conversation with the issue on ground, which would be this new infighting that we are already seeing within the coalition. It has barely even begun to take its first breath, and we're already seeing a lot of issues as it pertains to the membership and its leadership as well. What do you have to say about what this situation could imply, especially as they get ready for 2027, and the realities on ground about the present members of the party versus the people who are now joining, who may have also their own ambition as well within the party?
Kachi, my first take on the issues you've reeled out is, who are these 3 individuals? What are their positions in the ADC? And why now? Very interestingly, when we discuss issues about politics and the way forward for our country, there's this phraseology, we're all used to it. The witch cried last night, the child dies this morning, and then you make your conjectures. The first thing I must put before our listeners is the fact that Labour Party is going through issues regarding leadership and a crisis of confidence. So is the PDP. Leadership issues and the crisis of confidence. And then when the coalition tinkered with the chances of using the SDP, the crisis of leadership and trust visited this SDP. And when the coalition thought about the options of using ADA, NEC sent feelers and said it was very unlikely to register ADA, and the coalition settled quickly for ADC, the African Democratic Congress, and now certain individuals, 3 individuals goes to court to raise the issues, and then you ask yourself, Kachi, who is the drummer? Who is the puppeteer? And who are the puppets? I think that the first thing we must note going forward as a people and as a nation is the fact that the tendency towards a one-party state is a no-no for democracy. If you go to your dictionary, you'll find out that the one-party state is synonymous with despotism, dictatorship, and lack of fundamental freedoms that defines democracy. That's on the one hand. And then you find out that the contrived defections from other parties to the ruling parties, contrived, mark my use of words, simply about the witch who cried last night and the child dying this morning. There is a predilection by the ruling party to stifle dissent. There is a predilection to twist the opposition. And those who are doing this to our dear president and the presidency are not being fair. If we all pride in the fact that that old schoolboy definition put out by Abraham Lincoln, B.B. Lincoln, in the 18th century, that democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people, is some kind of truism, then we must insist that leadership allows for opposition, credible opposition, as it were. And so I want to say that those who have gone to court are really not known to the NEC of the ADC, and that the NEC of the ADC, understanding the urgency of now, proceeded to resign for the coalition to use that vehicle for the purposes of redeeming our country. And that's the challenge and urgency of now. We understand that the time has come for us to say, never ever again, to say no, to say enough is enough to a leadership that has left governance and majored in propaganda.
All right, Chris, I get you clearly. That's a good way to start it. But then if ADA is not going to be registered, and then those who can be in PDP and who do not want President Tinubu to return in 2027, coalescing into a coalition, people are saying that that is the stark difference between APC, which was, a vehicle that was able to remove a certain president, and then ADC, that it looks like it's an hijack of an existing political party, and that's where the first problem will start. And you alluded to it, Chris. Why do you therefore think that you will not expect that people can be compromised, to work against the interest of those who are trying to unseat a certain president? Why do you think that people won't go to court? Even Dumebi Kachiku, who was the presidential candidate of the party in 2023, is saying that this can be right and that he might go to court too. More importantly is that aside that problem that you will encounter, that the coalition will encounter from the beginning, the bigger problem will be the problem of who should be the flag bearer. We have seen Peter Obi in that coalition, at least at the initial meetings. We have seen Atiku there. Peter Obi says he will run as a presidential candidate in 2027. We do not know on which party yet. Atiku says that he disagrees with those who are asking him to allow a southern candidate to run so that he should step down, given that he will be 81 in 2027. He says that no, that democracy does not work like that. This is the same thing that he did in PDP that led to all the brouhaha that allowed Nyesom Wike to hijack the party. If it happens that a primary will have to be the last resort, and you will have big names like Obi and Atiku again trying to vie for the ticket of ADC, don't you think that by that alone, you will have given Asiwaju a second-term ticket without even a fight? What are your thoughts on this, shenanigans happening at the very beginning in ADC?
Steve, I pray and I hope that I'm able to undertake that question that appears like a PhD thesis, but I'll try. First, has the ADC been hijacked? The answer is a no. The neck of a party, the leadership of the party, accepted and massively endorsed the takeover of the party. They resigned willingly to allow for a coalition, a redemptive coalition. The emergent coalition was not coerced on them. That's point number one. And point number two, Dumebi Kachuku had problems with Ralph Okenwosu and the leadership of the party before the 2023 elections. So the question first, Steve, is, was he really in the ballot? Go check the records. There was a lot of battles, and he was suspended before the election. So there's a whole lot of gamut of information absolutely, albeit very inconsistent, tilting towards helping the ruling party and Mr. President. But what is important for me is the fact that we live with a prevailing urgency. Steve, the need for a coalition is not necessarily about political tendencies, politics, and people who have ambition. It's about a redemptive call. There's a challenge to save our country, and now is the time. And if the coalition has found home in the ADC, we shall collectively resolve the contradictions. Now, very importantly, which is what enamels the carapace of my mind, how do we handle the ambition of Atiku Abubakar and the ambition of my dear brother, Peter Gregory Obi? Now, Steve, the reality of now takes us back to what happened in 2013, 2014, when there was a coalition that led to the formation of the APC. We had almost about 9 presidential candidates. It wasn't an easy sell. And then they signed an understanding, a memorandum of understanding, that whoever emerged the candidate of a party would be supported by the others. Samanda Adzaya, Rochas Okorocha, Kwakwanso, Nasir Rufai, several other persons ran for the presidential ticket. And eventually when Muhammadu Buhari took the ticket, they supported him. You know, I don't know why the APC and raging partisans are more interested in how we resolve the issues between Atiku Abubakar, Peter Gregory Obi, Rotimi Amechi than we are concerned. We're talking about building an ideological foundation sufficient to rescue and redeem our country. And then let me say clearly that there is some kind of hubris in the public space. There is some kind of perfidy, some kind of mendacity in the public space. And it's some bandwagonism. They talk about rotational presidency. They talk about power devolving between the North and the South. And I asked Steve, for what reason did we talk about rotation of power? Was it not to create some kind of justice, equity, and fairness? Now, at the political confab in 2014, 6-zonal structure was discussed and became the purpose or the practice of our engagement. Now you ask yourself, those who are talking about North-South, I ask them, since 1999, we've had 26 years of power. Between 1999 and 2007, the Southwest produced the president. Between 2007 and 2010, the Northwest produced the president. Between 2010 and 2015, the South-South produced the president. And then between 2015 and 2023, the Northwest produced the president. What about the other regions? You know, because there is some kind of politics and perfidy, some kind of debauchery and deceit that goes on our political horizon. The major political holders use some kind of obfuscating deceit. And that brings me to that popular quote that, Steve, you know me with. Sir Walter Scott, oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. When you use the North-South divide, then you ask yourself, what about the South-South and the Southeast and the South? What about the North-Central and the Northeast and the North? Are they non-Nigerians? Is zoning and rotation of power not meant to assuage their call for inclusivity? Now, if we were to allow in the popular argument that power has to stay in the South, Bola Ahmed Tinubu to finish his tenure in 2027 and extend to 2031, how many years would we have had? Steve will have a total 28 years. 16 years superintended by the Southwest. 5.5 years by the South-South. And then what about the Southeast? What about the Northeast? And what about the North Central? So there is this thing the political class does that I have come here to debunk today. I'm not concerned as to the aspiration of Atiku Abubakar. I'm not worried or disturbed about the aspiration of my dear brother Peter Gregory. I'm thinking about Generation Next. What will posterity say about us if we do not put issues about equity, fairness, and justice in the front burner? How do I hear so many people who are decamping from their parties to the APC saying that it is because power must remain in the South? How has power remaining in the South feathered the nest of justice, equity, and fairness, and how has it helped our people in the South East and the South-South? And then how has this angling? So I think that importantly, Steve, what we should be thinking about is how we truly solve the Nigerian nationality question. And I'll tell you, Steve, quickly how we can solve it. Nigeria is a pseudo-federalism, at best a unitary system. We have left fundamental issues of state unaddressed. I was one of those who thought that having come to power, the first thing President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will do was to walk the path of restructuring, which he preached as the governor of Lagos State. Unfortunately, nobody's talking about it. What will solve our problems, the silver bullet as it were, is to address issues about resource control through fiscal federalism and devolution of power. If we have a truly federal structure, these issues about whether the Igbos get power or whether the Yorubas continue in power, whether the North Central or the Northeast continues in power, would etiolate. What will become the fundamental issues is how governance and leadership affects the masses of our people. So I am here to debunk the falsehood that litters and dominates our political horizon, which is about the North-South divide. It has not done justice to anybody. It has not done justice to our federalism. Right. So I do sincerely believe that going forward, we must address the fundamental issues of state.
Okay, that's very valid. The people must always come first. Now, let's bring in another angle to this. Unlike the APC merger in 2013, where whole parties merged into one, what we're seeing with ADC coalition is more of a gathering of what I would say influential individuals from various parties, you know, PDP, APC, who, if you think about it, lost out in their former parties. Now, let's speak on the grassroots game. How do you think this coalition can build a grassroots structure nationwide? You know, can this coalition now, where we see loads of personalities, translate into an effective ground game that can challenge the well-organized ruling party with regards to the APC? And then my second question to you will be on the Obi factor. His rise in the obedience movement was powered by youths and first-time voters who were hungry for something different from the old political class. Now it seems like he's teaming up with several elder statesmen and the usual power brokers, essentially the establishment figures the youth were wary of. How do you think this coalition will retain the energy and optimism of the youth-driven movement under these circumstances if he contests under this coalition? That would now be to say perhaps Atiku will be contesting under ADC because, of course, Peter Obi will not be able to contest as well if he's contesting.
Kachi, an awesome question you've just asked. And let me inform you, and indeed our viewers, that the first major effort on the coalition was by COPDEM, a segment of the obedient movement, Coalition for Protection of Democracy, as a segment of the obedient movement. And they were the first group that got into a coalition with the ADC. So in actual fact, the first effective coalition that we see on our political amphitheater came from the obedient movement. They reached out first to Ralph Okenwosu and the party regarding, and they signed as early as the first few months of 2024, a working charter. Most people do not know that. It wasn't these big political weights who started it. It was the COPDEM, a segment of the obedient movement. The youths understand the urgency of now, and they know that the time to redeem our country is now. It can't be any better time when what we have as politics and politics on this political amphitheater, where what we have is propaganda rather than performance and leadership. And now, the issues about Peter Gregory, he understands the urgency of now. I was at the unveiling of ADC as a coalition platform, and I was with him. We spoke about these fundamental issues. You know, it is not about the challenge of the ambition of Atiku Abubakar or that of Peter Gregory. It's about moving the coalition and the message of ADC to the 774 local governments in this country, across the wards in Nigeria, and that is ongoing, effectively so. You know, Kachi, importantly, when we come to the issues about presidential ticket, we will resolve the issues in favor of the country. The movement that I head is called Country First, and we are talking to the leaders of the ADC. Some of us are involved at some level in the leadership of the ADC, and we think that it's about country first. It's about moving our country away from the nada to promise. And this will work. Believe me, it will work. You know, I do not understand why the APC is crying more than the bereaved. The point is that they should busy themselves about leadership, about transforming the jangling discord of inanity, despondency, and trauma that holds the country. They should bother themselves about fixing issues of national security. They should bother themselves about joblessness and despondency. They should bother themselves about securing Nigeria, because the primary reason for which leadership exists is the protection of life and property, one. And then it is the welfare of the people. It is tackling issues that border on food security and anti-corruption. And all these fundamental issues, the ruling party has failed woefully. So I think that moving forward, the ADC is strong enough and passionate enough and committed enough to addressing the urgency of now and resolving the contradictions that you perhaps think is existing.
Well, Dr. Chris Nwakobia, the convener, Country First Movement, and lawyer, public affairs analyst, thank you so much for joining us this morning on the morning show, and of course, your very, very essential analysis.